early 20th century people didn't eat bear because of the common belief that bears were relatives of man. October 7th in Telemark is Brittames, in memory of Saint Brigida of Sweden. It is supposedly the day the bear collects heather and moss and goes to his winter den. Saint Brigida in English would become Bridget or bride. In many countries there are stories about a bear's and a woman's relationships and their offspring together. As an adult, this offspring usually became a hero. Knud the Great, the king of Denmark, is said to be a descendant of a bear. Sacred beasts of Wotan, berserkers in true form. Your post has been blessed by Odin, god of 999 names. Praise be to the bears, their souls are divine beyond the measure of humans. Praise be their ferocity, their savagery, their sacred hatred. Praise be unto their grim nature, their bloody claws, their grisly maws, blonde in the summer and dark in winter, eyes burning with fury like the sun. If I had to come back, after this life is over, I think I would like to come back as a bear. Why a bear, Grandpa? Well, think about it. Sleep all winter, eat whenever I want, fight whenever I want, fuck whenever I want, and no one messes with me. Yeah, that sounds nice to me. More than a few of my elders have become angry with me whenever I spoke about wanting to hunt a large grizzly I had spotted in more than one occasion. Huh. Iron it in G. You leave that bear alone, that could be my grandpa, just hungry, he just looking for something to eat. We don't hunt bear. My ancestors, and quite a few of my elders, believed that when a man has done all he could for his family and his loved ones, he is called back home. Then, if he wishes, he may return for a time as a bear, to finally enjoy a leisurely way of life, and to keep an eye on his old hunting grounds and his grandsons. I believe it too. Sense of bears, many people have witnessed bears in the wild partaking in unusual behavior, such as sitting still for long periods of time in one spot doing apparently nothing but staring at scenic vistas, such as sunsets, lakes, and mountains. There is very little explanation as to what use or purpose is in this behavior, except in theorizing that the bears merely find such views aesthetic and beautiful.
Lately I've been having somewhat reoccurring dream, where I am inside a building like a grocery store, or on a bus. There is a big brown bear outside. Sometimes, it is far away on the street, sometimes it is just outside the window or door, but I am safely far away from it, and the dream continues on to whatever the next dream sequence is. I can recall. There is always snow on the ground in these dreams. But last night, in the dream I was outside on the street or the sidewalk, and there were 3 bears walking around, a mom with her cub and another huge brown bear. There was a vehicle on the street, the kind without any doors, that they use in the summer, and I hid inside it. The mama bear and their cub ran past me, while I was in the truck. But the third giant bear saw me and put its massive head through the passenger side. I froze staring at it. It was curious about me and sniffing my legs. Its eyes were big like a dog when it smells a treat. I can still remember its bare nose and lips moving as it got close and smells my legs. Then I woke up. Very scary. I hope a bear doesn't kill me. Never had a reoccurring dream before. Kinda thought it was bullshit before. Last 3 nights I dreamt a bear attacked me and I had to gouge its eyes out every time. I haven't dreamt in a long time. Maybe it's because I quit smoking weed. I'm not scared of bears. The area I live in only has black bears and they're fairly small and you can run at them and they'll run away. So I have no idea where it's coming from. Bears in dreams represent strong forces or a stronghold that is attacking you. When you quit doing certain things that are toxic to you or start changing your life around for the good and better yourself. These kind of dreams are common and warn you that things you used to do are not going to let go of you so easily. The good thing about this dream is that you gouged its eyes out instead of running from it. So you are confronting and subduing it from completely harming you.
Here's one without a punchline. I never did figure out exactly what was going on. Several years ago I went down to Guatemala. It's not important why, the only thing you need to know is that me and a few others were going to be meeting one-on-one with a bunch of locals over about 2 weeks. Me and a colleague, she's not important. I discover early on that many of the women we talk to are scared to go to the hospital, try to figure out why, but locals won't say, make a note of it, and move on. We were on a tight schedule. I don't forget about it though. Going forward I make a point of gauging how everyone feels about the hospital. It's clear they're uncomfortable talking about it. This is ringing alarm bells in my head because it's very pertinent to why I'm here in the first place. Anyway, there's a local doctor I'm in close contact with. Call him Dr. Gomez. He works at the hospital in question. Second day of my arrival, I meet up with him. I tell him what I'm hearing so far. Now, most of you reading this will think these are ignorant peasants. They're probably just scared of modern medicine, but take it from someone who works closely with Central American rural farmers and villagers all the time. That's just a cliche. Many are deeply superstitious, of course, but they're not scared of modern medicine. They just think modern treatments are less effective than herbal remedies anyway. That's not the point. The point is Dr. Gomez actually tries to sell me on this ignorant peasant bullshit. Not in those words. This sets off more alarm bells. It's a very strange thing for a doctor to say about his own community. Now I'm suspicious not just of the hospital, but of Dr. Gomez as well. Keep this to myself. The next day, I'm meeting with locals again. My colleague and I are moving down a list of families. We're about a quarter of the way down this list by the third day. The first few people that we meet with express the same wariness about the hospital. But the others did. Again, they won't really say why. About halfway through the day, everything changes. Anytime I bring up the hospital, people sing its praises. It's like that for the entire rest of the day. I'm puzzled. What do I make of this turn of events? Decide to follow a hunch. The next day I backtrack. My colleague continues moving down the list, meeting with locals, while I revisit a few families that we've already talked to. Suddenly all of those people are changing their tune. I mentioned that they expressed concerns about the hospital before. They deny it. I become more direct. Reading from my notes, they still deny it. Then it hits me. They're all parroting the same thing. It's like someone's been coaching them. Fuck, I guess I've got to tell you a bit more about why I was there to explain this next part. So I was sent down to Guatemala because there's an obesity and diabetes epidemic down there. Local government was working jointly with nutritional guideline. Nobody follows it. Government is perplexed. I was brought in to have a roundtable discussion with the local scientific community to work on resolving what they regarded as a cultural issue. Dr. Gomez was one of the participants in this discussion. All participants were provided with the list that my colleague and I would use in conducting our interviews with the locals, so drive. Gomez had this list. I thought about his suspicious hand-waving and the fact that roughly after I'd spoken with him, everyone began changing their story. Realize I'm about to be totally stonewalled if I don't do something. So I decide to go off script. I jump to the end of the list, visit a family living at the outer edges of the village. When I get there, I see Dr. Gomez leaving. He doesn't even notice me because he's holding the damned list, reading through it. But he looks up and his reaction confirms my suspicions. Surprise, concern, anger, but he plays it off quickly, tells me he's surprised to see me out here already. I ask him what he's doing, making a house call. I ask what about physician-patient privilege. He tells me very curtly, that he has to go. I decide to go ahead and talk with the family. I find the wife alone. Of course, she doesn't tell me anything. She's obviously scared, but when I bring it up she says she just doesn't feel well, so I ask if she wants me to take her to the hospital. I see panic in her eyes as she tells me no, she just has a headache or something. Keep in mind she's acting like this after pretty much parroting what all the others said, singing the hospital's praises. Something's going on here, and it's getting buried. I can feel it. That night, I'm in my room, staying in a small house with my colleague. I'm thinking through my interviews and looking through my notes. It's very late, and I should be in bed, when I hear footsteps outside my window. I glance outside but nobody's there. By this point my suspicions have kind of got my anxiety heightened. I'm a researcher after all, and part of my training involves knowing when you're stepping on people's toes. I could sense that when I ran into Dr. Gomez earlier today. I'm wondering if maybe there's something bigger here than I realized. I hear some movement at the front door. I get up and slowly make my way over to it. Through the gap at the bottom, I see someone's shadow, then it walks away. Footsteps recede, soon it's silent. I don't open the door right way, but when I feel it's safe, I check outside. A strange item is lying on the ground. I'm not sure what I'm looking at first. Looks kind of like a homemade doll, but it's not. It's actually a handful of sticks, all sharpened to a point, each 6 inches long, tied together with a piece of twine. About to pick it up when I realize that a couple of the sticks are actually bones. I don't know much about anatomy, but it looked like maybe a forearm bone, like an ulna, that had been snapped in 2 pieces and bound up with the rest of the sticks. This weird little bundle also has writing all over it. Look closer. They're not words, but ideograms or hieroglyphs. Some of the characters actually resemble Chinese. I'm describing all of this just to give you an image, but the important thing is what was underneath. Hard to tell in the dark, but pretty sure it was a pool of blood. I heard movement again, and I looked around, couldn't see much of anything. Decided to leave the thing there, go back inside, figure I'll tell my colleague before we leave the house the next morning, so she doesn't freak out. I do this, but when I go to show her the item, it's gone. My colleague thinks I'm playing a trick on her. I insisted I saw what I described to you. She has a hard time believing me. Understandable. There isn't even a stain where I said I saw blood. In the end she just shrugs and says we should forget about it. Fast forward, the 2 weeks are over. We're preparing to leave. In the end I never discovered why the locals were frightened of the hospital. Since they'd changed their tune I couldn't even mention it in my policy recommendation. So I wrote some report on cultural competency urging the scientific community to engage with locals on 1-1 in the hopes that something would come to light. I never heard anything more on the matter, but I talked to my colleague a few months later, brought up the weird item. She said she'd been meaning to tell me something that morning when I told her about the item. Afterwards, we'd resumed our work, visiting dozens of locals. She was especially eager to finish up our final report, but during that time, in a few different houses, she noticed items like the one I described to her. Some were pretty different, but some were almost identical. She saw